sexual awareness since April is Sexual Awareness Month. So let's get into it.
All right, so we got the first question.
So I know a couple of us here on Girls Talk, we have experienced sexual abuse. I personally have experienced it with someone who I thought, well, is family, and it wasn't a great experience for me. Although I held it in for a very, very long time, I recently just started like dealing with it as far as actually speaking about it and letting others know until probably like 3 or 4 years ago. Although it happened at a very young age, it's still embedded in my mind. Like it still kind of like hurt to even think about that person, or when you go to a family event, you see that person's face. So I think it's very much, okay to deal with it and not let it linger on in that aspect.
And a majority from what I've read, a lot of people, they believe that you're going to be sexually assaulted or abused by a complete stranger. That only happens as you get older. But usually where it usually happens is in the comforts of your home or in the house of someone that your parents trusted. And normally, typically, it's by a family member. And sometimes a lot of parents, they are a bit skeptical about where they leave their children, or sometimes they feel like they can trust whoever they leave their child with. But something always tends to happen where the child gets touched, they get molested, or they get raped, or they are exposed to either pornography, or they're exposed to someone else's body parts. And now here comes the thoughts and this, and now the cycle of how am I going to get out of this? And now, as you get older, and you start experiencing sexual harassment, assault, molestation, and rape,
Right.
and it all stems from what you've experienced when you were a child. My experience, I experienced it at a very young age. I think I was probably not older than 7, and it was by a family member. I believe my mother knew, but she didn't know how to approach it or how to react to it. And then as I got older, it happened at school, and then like 4 years ago, it happened with another family member. And I mean, they're well known in their community, so I mean, one of these days he's gonna mess up and somebody's gonna start a #MeToo. And sometimes you hope that person gets called out for what they did, and hoping that someone can go on ahead and stand up and speak out, and then just start a movement with that.
And it's not even just starting a movement, it's just doing that first step of just speaking on it. Because yes, it may have happened to you or to me at a very young age, but it still hurts to even think about, like, how could that person even do that? Or how could, my mom not believe that this person did this to me, or my family members not believe that this person did this to me, because they keep that person at such of a pedestal, a high standard, and it's crazy that you get the shame versus them for speaking up, and it's very mind-boggling, and you just, some days you don't know how to deal with it, or some days you just put it on the back burner and be like, this never happened. I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to feel it. So,
and I think that's what I was going through with my experience. Mine's happened at a young age as well, but in my case it was a family's friend, and I think I would say 6 probably. I don't remember the age. I don't remember too much because it was so young. And I remember me telling my mom, just like you, and then you
didn't tell my mom. She just
figured it out. Well, I told my mom. I went up to her because I was very awkward. So I told her, and then with me telling her, she actually went and confronted the person who did it. But what happened, where that fell through the holes, is where he denied it, and the fact that he denied it, my mom's such a trusting person, and she's like, well, he said he didn't do it, and then she backed off. that's what happened. And she was the only person that really knew about it because I didn't tell anybody else. And to this day, I wonder, you know, do everybody else knows or but. And I think that's the biggest challenge, like you said to me, is some days you remember it, some days you put it away, some days just like, did that really happen?
Right.
Is this a dream? Is this real? You know, so I think that's where that gets everyone who's been through that path as well.
Yeah, sure. And then sometimes God brings back some memories for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, even though you may put it back then, He gonna let you remember what happened because it's for a reason. It's a testimony for you to help somebody else.
And it shows you the
Exactly.
areas where you need to improve on because
Right.
it's not easy overcoming it. And like for me, I experienced sexual abuse at the age of 5, you know, being fondled with. At the age of 8, you know, and lastly at the age of 14, you know, by my biological father. So to piggyback off of what Ann said, it does happen, you know, within the household. Usually it's the father, stepfather, uncle,
Uncles,
or cousin,
cousins.
or brother, you know, and it doesn't, sexual abuse doesn't necessarily just happen to women, it's happening to guys too.
Yes.
And I feel like because it's happening to guys and how this society is set up, when it happens to guys, they feel like they can't really express what happened without someone being like, oh, you're gay, you know.
Judged.
Yeah, and according to statistics, 1 out of 4 females is touched, and 1 out of 6 guy is touched. So I mean, it does generate and it does stem from the childhood. Let's talk about the things that you experienced in the midst of going through that at the age that you experienced it.
I say for me, like around the age of 6, 7 years old, for me it was more so of a discomfort.
Yeah.
You felt like nobody loved you. You felt like everybody was against you. You wanted to be alone all the time. You wanted to just, and even if you weren't alone, you wanted to either you wanted to be alone or you wanted to be the biggest star of the family. You wanted to outshine everyone
Yeah.
because you wanted people to notice.
Yeah.
And at that age, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was, you know, I found that out
Later
2,
on.
3 years
And you see,
later
it's
on.
like
Like,
the
it's just
innocence
like,
was taken from you.
yeah, so it's kind of like you feel like you're either on the back burner or you just want to be up front where everybody is, where everyone is able to notice you so that they can ask you what's wrong
Yeah.
and you will be able to speak, but nobody ever asked.
Right?
Nobody ever asked.
Did you find yourself, or did any of you guys find yourself, it's kind of like you were saying it without saying it. Because I remember it was a person, it's like I was throwing so many signs, as far as like, can I go with you please? Can I go with you please, please, please? Like begging to go. And it's like, I'm telling you without actually telling you because I know how this person can be as far as he was abusive, you know. So I found myself doing that too. I mean, have anyone of you guys experienced that?
I haven't experienced that because with my experience, once it happened and once my mom confronted it, that like she told me, she kind of put in my mind that it didn't happen. So I kind of grew up not really thinking about it at all, just really
Like
blocked it out, and it didn't bother me much until when I got to, I would say when I was in my last year of high school, almost into college, and I kept getting like dreams. I'm like, what are these dreams? You know, what are these? And it really kind of affected me. Then I started praying, asking God, and then He brought it to my memory like, hey, this actually happened to you. You know, this is not a dream. You can't keep blocking out, and I need you to deal with this.
Wow.
So that was my way of dealing with it and remembering it. You know, He brought it to me. I brought it back to Him and dealt with it then and there. Because I'm not gonna let this something that happened so long ago stop me from becoming the person that I need to become. And yes, I was bitter for a little bit. I kind of put a lot of blame on my mom, like, why didn't you do anything? And you know, why didn't you do anything? You can't say it's my fault because I told you what happened. I showed you the person and I showed you all the evidence. And not only that, there are people around there who, while the act was taking place, you know, and didn't do anything. And you know, to this day, I don't blame them because they were, you know, I guess they were sleeping, they weren't aware. But my younger brother, who's a little bit older than me, he kind of figured out, but yet he was young too and didn't really know what was going on as well. So I just realized at that point, I can't really blame anyone. It happened the way it happened. Yes, it's not okay, but that was my way of dealing with it and not letting it affect me.
So what is something that you guys would say like to a parent? Like what would you tell them for someone who have, you know, little girl or kids overall? Like, what is something that you would tell them to be aware of?
Be aware of the people that is around you. Know their character, know their personality, know who they're in. Even like that, don't even leave your child with anyone, a female or a male. If you're gonna have your child, take your child everywhere you go, because you can't trust anybody. You don't know what anyone is capable
That's
of.
true.
And yes, that might be your friend that you've known since high school, but he might be a molester deep down inside. He sees this little girl, he adores this little girl, yes, but then in his mind, he's thinking these crazy things that a man should not be thinking about, especially for a little girl, so, or a little boy at that.
Exactly.
Also, to throw in, I mean, I've never experienced it, but like I said, I've been friends with these ladies for a while, especially Quella, so I know, like, firsthand, you know, like, the experiences and things that, you know, just by hearsay and things like that. But just to talk about, like, what you went on, also be aware of when men refer to your daughter as my little girlfriend or things of that nature. Because I had a neighbor once before, I used to babysit my neighbor's daughter. And there was another neighbor down the hall, and he used to, every time he'd see her, he used to say, oh, hey, my little girlfriend, my little girlfriend. And, you know, no one ever thought anything of it. Everyone was like, hee hee ha ha, you know, because she's a child, you know. You don't think nothing sexual from that. And one day, my mom's friend, she was sitting outside, and she heard it. And I don't know, I guess it it triggered something in her. And she just went off on the man, like, she was so upset. I mean, not went off, like, you know, using profanity or anything, but she, like, really, like, got in his face about it. Like, you're too old to be calling a 3-year-old or 4-year-old your girlfriend. Like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Like, you can say, hey, she looks cute, or, you know, little girl, whatever, but to refer to her as your
Little
spouse, you know,
That's-
partner, like, that's a little extreme.
Yeah.
And at that moment, like, her mother, she didn't really speak English or anything like that. So when he mentioned that in English, obviously she didn't really understand, you know.
What's going on?
Yeah, he was laughing, you know, the little girl was playing around. The little girl don't understand either. So, you know, the mom probably felt like it was like a little jokey joke. She didn't realize the words that he was using. You get what I'm saying? And the little girl, like, for her to be 3 or 4, you know, she was a little developed, I guess. I wouldn't say like all the way developed, because children are not developed, but you know, she had a little something going on. So when I looked at her and I would look at how the guy did that, I was like,
Something's not right.
Yeah.
like mentally something not clicking, because this is a child at the end of the day, and you will actually look at a child and
But you'll be surprised.
And-
a lot of people do.
like you'll look at a child and you would say that,
You'll be surprised.
Like-
Really surprised.
and that just blew me. I was like,
I would say keep an open communication with your children, and also with the people that are around your kids. Make sure you know who they truly are. Pray, have discernment to be able to sense it, because even me, when I communicate with certain men, like I can sense that, and because it was something that happened to me, you know, spirit recognize spirit, like game recognize game. I can look at you in your eyes and I automatically see, okay, you deal with perversion.
Do you get
And
vexed?
I get vexed in my spirit. It's like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ooh.
and sometimes even out there dating, it's kind of like, okay, I already see what you want, so we're just gonna cut this short. I'm not here for it.
that was
And
my
even
question.
your
That
body
was the question I
language,
was
too.
gonna ask you
The
guys.
body-
The body
The body
language, you
language.
can tell automatically. Like, I can see you and I'll be like, yeah, I gotta go the other way. Because your body language can tell me right then and there, like, what is exactly that you're dealing with and what you're looking for. And I'm just like, nah,
I mean, but
I ain't with that.
I kind of feel that with or without like sexual abuse being a part of that, I feel like that's just naturally, well, a smart woman's like discernment. You can kind of tell what a guy looks for and wants. I mean, usually the first conversation will kind of give it away,
Pretty much.
or if not, maybe the second or third. But it won't take that long for you to notice. And then, like, because, you know, like you said, spirit recognizes spirit, you know, game and stuff like that, and discernment, you kind of, before you go out there and you start dating, you kind of pray about it. You kind of, you know, seek God, especially about who you're dealing with. Because I've always, like, not always, but when I got into the realization of how important that was, and I really started doing that, I realized, like, God does reveal people and like
Yeah,
people and
definitely.
you know things like that. So when you thinking about something like so strong, like how you guys dealt with like sexual, you know, like harassment and you know like things of that nature, to me it's like it's so important to kind of continue that. But then again, it's like thank God that you know God has given you guys discernment to be able to tell that, because I've never experienced this before. So you know it's like I'm quiet and I'm like listening, because you would never think that people that you're friends with go through stuff. Just like everyone goes through things. Like I have friends that have been homeless before, like low down homeless, and you would never know that. You know what I'm saying? So it's so important as well, like just to communicate with your friends, just to really get to know them. And it's a good thing that you guys are sharing this, because it's so many people that go through this. It's so many people that have gone through it. Some people are still going through it, and they're like our age, and it's still, you know, like family members or close friends, and it gets to a point where it's like they feel like they're in a shell and they feel like they're in a bubble. So
It's true.
yeah,
A lot
like
of
it's
times,
hard to
you know, when
speak
you
on that.
experience stuff like that, it is hard to talk about it, because who wants to
Look like a
discuss
liar.
something like that? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And it also takes me
look at you.
And it takes me back, as we're talking about it, it takes me back to the story of Tamar, how she was basically raped by her brother, and the other ones, they kind of like helped him in a way. And after the whole rape happened, she lived a desolate life. And sometimes I wonder, like, did she ever try to talk about it? Did she go out and try to seek help from it, or did they just keep her
Brushed it under the
brushed it under the rug and
Kept her
you know,
bound.
Yeah, kept her bound to what she dealt with, and did it continue? Nobody knows. And then there was another story in Judges, I believe it was the concubine who got raped by a gang. Yeah, and then she died because of the gang rape. And then it's like, you know what, with today's society, there's a lot of women saying, you know, you should always speak out about what happened to you. And then there's people who you share it with, and they either laugh or tell you not to say anything about it, because after my
they just don't believe
and then
it.
after my last experience, I remember the first person I shared it with, they kind of like chuckled, and I was like, I don't know how you got yourself in that position. And then I spoke to somebody else about it. I spoke to someone else about it, and then they was just like, oh, don't say nothing, that's family. And I was like, no, that's the problem. That's the problem now, especially in the Haitian community.
Yeah.
Especially in the Haitian community, once you get molested or raped, or you actually share, or even touch, or actually share your experience with somebody, and now what they automatically go to first is don't say anything about it, don't tell anyone. And that's the problem. What happens in my house stays in my house. What's done in this house, it stays in this house. No, it does not. No, it does not. Because then because of my fear of actually speaking out, I could have missed the opportunity of actually reporting that person. And, you know, for other young girls out there, just because it happened at your house does not mean you can keep that there, because now you don't want to go home. Now you don't want to stay. You don't want to be at home. I remember in elementary school, I was friends with she was my best friend, and then she told me how her stepdad was touching her in her sleep, and she was developed. And she was very developed, nice girl. And she told her mom didn't believe her. And then she ended up running away from home, sleeping in like abandoned apartments by the school. And she didn't go home for like 2 days and my teacher, she didn't really report it, which is beyond me, because she came to school in the same clothes, and she would tell us, like, you know, I didn't go home, I slept in an abandoned apartment, and it never clicked, you know. And like her mom came to the school because she didn't see her daughter in 2 days, and then she cried and whatnot, but did the abuse continue?
That's the
Wow.
real
And
question.
then after
That's
that,
the real question.
I'm pretty sure she was a hurt. Look, she was hurt, because then we moved on to middle school, and you can tell that she's been through some stuff. Like, you can tell she's still dealing with the issues that happened in the 5th grade. So speak out. You have to say something. It doesn't matter if it's just like, you hashtag it or you put it out there. You speak to somebody, you go to a counselor at your school, you speak. If your parents don't support you, then you go somewhere else. Because someone will support you, someone will be able to protect you,
Right.
someone will be able to tell you what to do and where to go from there.
And not shun you and not shut you out. They would, somebody who really cares would
Exactly.
actually
Like a listening
help you.
ear,
A
basically.
listening ear, right.
And it's important that you actually do deal with it. I mean, you see, as far as us here that experienced it, if you experience it, please feel free, to reach out to us, on our social media or follow the video. You can reach out to us as well in our email, once we're done with, say, the email. But please talk about it. It needs to be discussed. I wanted to also point out the fact that, sometimes you never deal with the issue and you get stuck at the age that it happened to you. So if it happened to you at 5, you get stuck at being that 5-year-old girl, and you grow up and you become an adult, and mentally you're not really there because you're still stuck in childhood. And so it causes you to open or go into other doors, because you never dealt with the issue. So as far as pornography, as far as addiction,
Anger.
smoking and drinking, like it's so many doors that open up because someone has experienced sexual abuse and they never really dealt with the issue. And their way of dealing with it is smoking.
Like
or their way of
suppressing
dealing-
it.
Yeah, you
by
keep
using
suppressing it. And I'm here to tell you, like, no matter how long you try to suppress the issue, like, it's going to come back to
Until you
face
deal with it.
And not only that, there are some people who actually deal with being addicted to sex
That
because
too.
of that.
That's
And
true.
it's just like, wow, like you will never know because at that young age, that's all they knew.
Exactly.
And they grew up to just know just that. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna continue to do this because this is all I know.
That's gonna happen.
Yes, it's just I have to have this because this is all that I know. Or this is how I deal with my pain.
Exactly.
And they go through multiple guys and not knowing what is wrong with them.
But
Such a
the
question.
abuser, you never know how you affect
Affect
someone.
someone.
Because
Yeah.
you're thinking about your pleasure, you never know how much you ruin a person's life. Like,
Yeah,
this
the
can
aftermath.
affect you in so many
Yeah.
ways, and abusers don't understand that. Like, they're so stuck on, I gotta get my pleasure. Like, it shouldn't be like that. Because you take lives, you ruin people's childhood,
You take the
it really
innocence.
affects them.
Innocence
Yeah,
and
the
insecurities.
innocence is literally snatched away from them, and that's
And-
just not fair at all.
And you
It's
open
not.
up a door of torment as well because like that I always call sexual abuse the gateway for a hard life, like the gateway for challenges and addictions and everything because once you I know especially in my story, like from my personal walk, before I dealt with that and when it was coming to my memory stuff, it was a struggle, like the first thing you're thinking, like you're exposed to sex at a young age. And it's not normal for you to be going to school and your friends are talking about Barbies and this and that, and you're thinking about, well, what happens when man Barbie and women Barbie come together,
Exactly.
or how babies are made, or how this,
That's so true.
At a young age, you think,
I think it's not normal.
Yeah.
It's not. So now you create a doorway where this child is being exposed, wondering about sex way before their time.
Many
And then-
doors.
and maybe doors, exactly. Exactly. Now you open the door to sexual addiction, pornography. What happens when they can't satisfy that sexual addiction? Now they're branching off to other things.
Or any
Threesomes, foursomes,
Exactly.
orgies, I'm telling you, it opens so many doors, and people don't understand that.
It does. I remember when this is so clear to me, I remember when I was in the 2nd grade, and my friends at the time, I was going to school in Miami, my friends at the time, they had like this notebook that you write stories in, and then they passed the book on to me, and I was just like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I opened the book and I started reading. There were so much stories about sex.
Wow. At a young age.
I was in the 2nd grade. I was no more than 7,
Wow.
and it was like, to me, I already knew what it was because I've already dealt with it. But it's like, dang, there are other kids out there who experience this
We're not
and
speaking about it.
not saying anything. And I
Either
was just like,
experienced it, seen it, or they got touched.
Exactly.
Right.
9 times out of 10, they got
got
touched.
touched. And it's just like, there's a whole book of stories, and I took the book home because supposedly I was supposed to write a story in there. I left the book on the dresser, and then my aunt got the book, And she was like, "What is this?" And she thought that I wrote those stories. I had a chance at that moment to tell her what was going on, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I just kept quiet. I was just like, "This is not mine. This is, friends at school." Went to the school. It was like, "Oh, these kids are letting, teachers never did anything. Didn't call the parents. Nothing." So at the end of the day, there was no resolution. There was nothing resolved.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, I have a question
Mm-hmm.
for you, Paula. So how was it? I guess I don't know. It's like kind of hard to put my question because I had it together. But okay, how is it? I guess like waking up, living in the same household with your abuser, knowing that maybe the night before he did something to me, knowing that there's other people in the house, and it's like all you can pinpoint is that one person. Like how, I don't know, like how was it? Like I know it had to be like fearful and terrifying. Like
Well, I was already in a place where I was terrified. I'm going to speak about the aspect of my father, since that was the last time that it happened when I was 14. Everyone knew that I was afraid of my father. Everyone that knew me, knew him. I was afraid. So experiencing that just made it worse because it made it harder for me to actually come out and express what happened to me. But experiencing that, it was difficult, very difficult, because I felt like, I felt like I was placed in a place where I couldn't really speak about it. Yeah, because there was a lot of things that I dealt with, like in my childhood, or things that you want to discuss with your father, and I never did that because he was abusive at times. I've seen him, actually beat on, his wife at the time, and that wasn't a nice view. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is, it was just very difficult. It made it very, very difficult, and so dealing with that, it was just something that I had nowhere else to go. My mom was living here in Miami at the time. She didn't know exactly what was going on, and the reason was because me and my mom had a relationship, but it wasn't like to that extent where I felt comfortable to be like, "Hey, mom, blah, blah, blah." Our relationship was more based on, mommy loves you, or I'm sending your clothes, I'm sending your shoes, how much money you need, things of that nature. It wasn't like
A bond.
Like
a
it was
bond as a
providing
get.
relationship.
And exactly. And so I just felt like I was alone. It was two friends that I did tell. I will commend them. One of them was like, "If you don't tell, I'm gonna tell." So that kind of made me
Like gave you
say
some
something,
encouragement,
gave me some
right?
encouragement. That's how I looked at it, because I felt like this is already embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed, especially how it happened, and that this
And who
was
has done it?
exactly.
Mhm.
And I was more concerned about people's perspective, how they were going to look at me, how things were going to change from this point, what was going to occur
Yeah,
after
being that
this.
he was already abusive, like would
I was
he beat
thinking,
me?
honestly, it's not funny, but I always thought if I was to tell, like, we would be in a lifetime situation. Like, he probably try to tie us up, kill us, or, things of that nature. So that always played, like, in the back of my mind, like, I'm not going to say anything. But, you get to a point, because it happened 4 times for me to actually say something. A lot of people don't know that. It happened 4 times for me to actually express what happened. And, it was difficult, dealing with that, especially waking up feeling like there's nothing that you can do about the situation, because
It's
this
like
person
walking on
already has
eggshells.
control over you. Because of the things that
That's
you've seen him
horrible.
do. So it was very, very uncomfortable. A lot of mixed emotions, going through my mind at the time, anger, rage, I wanted to get revenge. Little on me, like, how can I, I want you to feel what I felt. And it's like, I couldn't really do nothing. But in my mind, you was dead. But, it was definitely a lot of mixed emotions.
Right.
A lot.
Diana, for you? My question is for all y'all. So, being the fact that it was a family friend, I know that he wasn't like in house, but my question to you is, when he did come around during family events or family things, like, how would you how was it for you to actually see him, or like what was going through your mind at those moments?
Well, With mine, it happened just once.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. It happened once, but within that once, it happened repeatedly. I don't know if you guys understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So how he went about doing it was one of my brother's close friends,
Mhm.
and everyone knew him. And after he did that, and after that whole ordeal, he stopped coming around. I never saw him again after that.
So you knew he did wrong.
That's like it's kind of like as my memory serves me right, it's like he disappeared. And then I don't know if my mom told my brothers or what happened. I don't know if word got around or whatever. He just disappeared. And then I ran into him, I would say, in my adult life
Wow.
when I was I would say about 21.
Mhm.
I went to a store and I bumped into him with my mom. You know, my mom acknowledged him. You know, he
Wow.
acknowledged my mom like they're like old time for like, oh, where have you been? You know, in the Haitian community, like you
Yeah.
see someone, you acknowledge them. And I looked at him, but the look on his face is when he saw me. Now that I'm much older, is like a
shock.
and I'm looking at him like
Guilt.
guilt. And you can see the look on his face is like once he saw that look on me, his face changed and he's like, oh yeah, you still remember that.
Of
And I'm
course.
like, yeah, I do. Don't even. And he knew not to even approach me
I
because
know that's
if
right.
he would have even approached me, it would have been like
Yeah, different
it
story.
would've been a different story right there. But what made me more happy is the fact that I saw him, and not only that I saw him, I felt a sense of peace because I felt like that
You
was the
faced it.
final moment to realize that I overcame that.
That's
And
Right.
that's what made me
Yes.
was happy about it. I saw him and I was just like, I don't even feel stressed to even
Yeah, right.
I don't feel pressed about you right now. Right now, you just another something under my shoe. Okay, so that's what made me happy, and I just kept it moving. But what also gave me joy is the fact looking at him and seeing his face, he's still dealing with it.
Right.
That's something that's gonna eat him alive
That's
unless
right.
he goes and finds whatever he needs to find or gives it to God or whatever that he needs to do to get through that.
Right.
But I'm free from that, but he's still in bondage from something that he did thinking that it was going to pleasure him.
Exactly.
Right.
You said that. Well said.
So, for you, Anne, same
Mine?
question. Like your feelings, like,
Well, I had a sense that something was going to happen even before it happened, and which is why I never wanted to be home, and no one else understood that. So even at any family function or anything of that sort, I remember having a dream that I saw him, but he didn't see me, and I was kind of like dodging him. And it actually happened at a funeral where I saw him, he didn't see me, and after that, I was like, I gotta go. But it just feels like you're still
in that moment.
in that moment, or you remember, and then you just feel so constricted. And in my mind, I always think about how I would tell him, like, I know what you did, and what you did was wrong. And like Quilla said, like in my mind, it's like you dead. I'm pulling out knives. Like you dead. I know what you did. And it's the anger, it's the rage, it's the I want you to feel how I felt. I want you, and I want everybody to know who you really are, because you're a monster.
Yes.
You're disgusting. You're the scum of the earth right
Yes.
now, and that's how you're going to be portrayed after I put you out there. And that's still now, even that's just the anger talking.
Yeah.
And you just want people to know who
To
they really
realize.
are.
That's right.
Because they're held at a pedestal at a certain, level, and you know who they are, you know the truth. And then there's people who may not believe you, because I remember saying something about it, and then they believed me, and they sensed it from him because they
But
were
they
in
never
tune.
approached it.
They were in tune with who they are spiritually, and they sensed it.
Right.
And I remember sharing it, and then they were like, I believe you, and then it went to, have you ever been evaluated? And I was just like, what?
You know what I'm saying?
What
Yeah.
you talking about?
Yeah, you just went left.
Yeah, you just went left, and sometimes you just, it's a ball of emotion, because people believe that you're over it,
But
but
you're
deep
not.
down you're really not over it, and then you're just piling on other responsibilities that you're trying to deal with, and you're doing this, you're involved in that, and
Right.
then
Still trying to
in your
suppress
mind
it.
you're still trying to suppress it, and you're still trying to get over it. You're trying to keep yourself busy, but it doesn't work because
Yeah.
then you don't have time to actually deal with what you've dealt with, or you just don't have time to actually handle what you're feeling right now. And you can tell people like I need some time, and some be like no, and others they'll just take it and be like okay. But I shared my story with others, and they believe me, and some have they will support me 100% on what I do and how I approach the situation. But in the family, it's disgusting in a way, because now you're kind of
Looked
you're
at
big,
different.
you're looked at differently, and some people they know, and then they don't say anything to you. They don't tell you like you should do something. Yeah, they don't say. They
It's
don't
like
tell
they're
you,
scared themselves.
Yeah,
that was
true.
They're like they went
Biggest
through it,
thing.
and you never know. Some of them
And
probably
it's like
have
everybody
one.
have their ear to the ground, but no one's saying anything.
That irks me though.
Yeah.
Because some people don't want to be.
address the issue.
Some people
My
don't.
dad's side, they
like-
never talked about it.
Like to me, I feel like say for instance,
He's not in my presence.
let's say if you were to tell me, what had happened or whatever, and I believe you wholeheartedly, like yes, I believe that happened to you. I can see it, I can sense it, whatever. But because we're all family, and we're we're always around each other or whatever case may be, I don't want to be. It's like I don't want to be the one that takes the fall for it for
But
you. You know what I'm saying?
but
Like
that's the
don't
thing.
come to me like
That's
that.
the thing. You shouldn't have to take the fall from it, but at the same time, acknowledge that I
It
did,
happened to me.
and it happened to
But
me.
no one wants
Check
to be
on me.
perceived as the
At the end of the
how you
day-
say the carrier of the bad news.
Oh,
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't
At
care.
that
Yeah, like
moment,
that's how
It
it.
happened to me.
Yeah.
Check on me, cause I'm not okay. Like it didn't. It
Yeah.
didn't happen
You know?
to you. Like when it happened to me. Yes, I'm talking with feelings because when it happened to me, nobody on that side of the family within years, they probably, reached out through social media, but no one took the initiative to really like go into depth. No one actually addressed the situation. No one called me. No one even spoke about it. If they did speak about it, it wasn't in my presence.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was just
no
to
one
speak
reached out to
on
me
it.
to give me that sense of comfort from that side of the family to be like, hey, are you okay? I don't
Because
know
they're
if they
still
believe
cool with
me.
him, and they still perceive him as, oh, my brother, my cousin. Nah, I believe you ain't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
a whole other topic.
It's as simple as, like as she said, just checking on the child.
Some people are just not
Yeah.
affectionate. They not compassionate. Some people just flat out don't care.
Common
Like,
sense
it
when
shouldn't
you're faced
be,
with something like that.
It ain't
Yeah.
common to
But
have
common sense is
sense.
not common.
You're
True.
right, but
Yeah,
I'm
so
like,
because I said it could be as simple as like a child is going through a situation. A simple step could be like, okay, hey, so I'm gonna take so and so to the mall. I want to spend some me time with her,
But the majority, like for example, me, hearing that, I feel like that side of the family is still dealing with denial. They probably
That
just
too.
don't believe it.
but too, I can't even fault them because a lot of times if you are sexual abused, most likely, it is from the family, it's generational.
Yeah.
It's been going on
Yeah.
for years and no one never said anything about it.
And who's to say that he hasn't done it to some of them?
True.
You get what I'm saying? So if they haven't
Or if
spoke
it
on it
hasn't
and it's
been done
been
to him.
for years, they're like, well,
I wouldn't say it was done to him. It was more so of him seeing it done to someone
Somebody
else.
else. Right.
You
And
know,
then just
it's
acting on
repeated
it.
the cycle.
Yeah.
But I broke that curse in the name of Jesus. No longer will anybody else in my family be touched. Okay? Right.
Amen.
So you have to break that. But
so yeah, you can answer the question, kind of. So yeah, how did
So
you?
for me, it happened at a very young age, as you guys will know. I don't see the person as often because, he is within the family, but I don't see the person as often because I live like separate ways, thank God. But there are some times like when I do go to family events. My aunts, they know about it now. They don't associate with him. They don't, look his way or anything. So when I do go to family events, I do see him. There is something in me still, like that, a pinch that just, I gotta take a deep breath and just move forward. I mean, I'm still like, in my adulthood, I'm still like thinking about that little girl. I'm not even like, that little girl is still hurt.
Right.
And I still haven't like yet, like, yes, I've spoken about it and I've brought it out to my family, but I'm still dealing with it.
Yeah.
And
Takes
when
time.
I do go to family events or like things that we may have, and I would see him, just like,
Get
okay,
tense.
yeah,
Is
just
it
like
more
I
tense
clench.
or like anxiety?
Yeah, like no, like I would like clench my hand, and I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna go sit in the car, or have like my sister or somebody come sit in the car with me. And not only did I go through it, but one of my sisters went through it as well, and she,
The same person?
not with the same person, with someone else. It wasn't within the family, but she went through it as well. And watching her go through that was like, okay, I have to make sure that I get through this so I can help her.
Be strong. Yeah.
And
Isn't
yeah,
that
I
crazy
mean,
how you have to Okay, so we're gonna end it here. If anyone else have experienced sexual abuse, you can reach out to many organizations. One of the organizations I would like you to reach out to is Touch Ministries. It's me and my mom ministry, where we deal with people who have experienced sexual abuse. And you can reach out to us on Facebook, and we'll be glad to encourage you, walk you through it, give you tips on how you can deal with the issue at hand.
And even though I've never dealt with it personally, please, like, feel free to speak up on it. Like, please do not remain silent. Like I said, I've known these young ladies for quite some time, and this, like, today is, like, I never knew, like, how deep it was. So with that being said, #speak up.
That's
Make
right.
sure that you be open about it. Don't worry about how it looks. Don't worry about what people are gonna say. I know sometimes you don't want to speak to friends or family because you don't want to be judged, but in that aspect, there are many sources you can speak to. She just named one, Touch Ministries. Just speak to someone. Like, let it be known, let it out, but do not suppress it. Do not keep it in, because eventually God will reveal it to you, and you're gonna have to deal with it. So deal with it while you can, and deal with it now than later. Like, you don't want to be in that space where you feel like you're gonna get married and you still haven't dealt with that, or whatever the case may be. Or you're dating someone and you can't be around them a certain kind of way because you're like, you're gonna touch me, or like you don't want to live your life being timid and scared. So #speak up. Just
And also, if
It's
you have
necessary.
any questions, if you want to, communicate with one of us who have experienced it, we'll be glad to help you get through it. You can feel free to email us at 101girltalk, that's talk of 2Ks @gmail.com.
and with that being said, make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We will be doing a part 2, so make sure you guys watch this video and look out for the next one. And with that being said,
This is April, and go ahead and
It is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Exactly. So make sure you speak up about it. This is your chance to. This is your month, okay? And so with that being said, see you all next time on part 2 of
Girl